Everyone knows this optical illusion. Some see a vase, others see two people about to kiss. But look closer. It's actually the top 8 deductive board games of all time. Never let your eyes deceive you. I'm your host, Jonathan Franks, and you're watching Tabletop Mysteries. Some games test your speed, others test your strength. But these top 8 games we're about to investigate tonight, well, they test your mind. But that's not all. Hidden within these 8 cases is our own mystery, a puzzle buried in our presentation, clues scattered across every entry. Maybe it's the music tickling your ear, maybe it's an object in the background, or maybe it's hidden in the very words we choose. Find the clues, piece them together, and if you can, you'll uncover the answer to tonight's greatest mystery. What is the #1 deductive board game of all time? Did you ever hear the myth about the vanishing village? With no sign of struggle, only a single word carved into a tree, Croatoan. Some say it was starvation, others blame disease or war. But what if the truth was darker? To arrive at a solution, one would have to have a deeper look at tonight's game, and our first game of the night, Pagan, a genuine witch hunt in colonial America that certainly won't be a walk in the woods, since you'll have absolutely no broom for error. Pagan, Fate of Rowanoke, is an asymmetric 2-player deduction game set in mysterious and eerie final days of the Rowanoke colony. One player takes on the role of the witch, secretly hiding among the colonists, while the other is the witch hunter, determined to find and eliminate them before it's too late. What unfolds is a tense battle of bluffing, deduction, and clever card play, all wrapped in a richly thematic package. What sets Pagan apart, though, is how much it squeezes out of its hidden identity mechanics. The witch player must carefully sow suspicion and gather power without giving away their identity, while the hunter must use every tool at their disposal to uncover the truth. Unlike many other hidden role games that rely heavily on things like social cues, Pagan leans more on mechanical deduction and card synergies, making it a really satisfying experience for fans of tighter strategic play, going beyond the typical social deduction crap where you're essentially just pointing at someone an accusation because I don't know, they breathed funny. While certainly not a game of pure deduction, it is incredibly good at what it does. For being a game that is entirely unique and enjoyable, it creates one of the most intense and thematic deduction experiences you can have at the table, with a depth of play that rewards multiple sessions. This is the game that doesn't just ask you to outthink your opponent, it invites you to become the very role you're playing. And when a game can execute that level of immersion and role play subtly, it's always a charming experience. Hell, I wish I was playing Pagan right now. Have you ever tried to communicate without saying what you really mean? Fearful that others are listening and interpreting what you're saying? If you've experienced that paranoia, you'll feel right at home with our #7 game, Decrypto. Use your wits, deception, and deduction to crack each other's codes, while being constantly paranoid that the other team is intently listening, putting together their clues like red string on a madman's corkboard. But be careful, or this game might just break you.
Decrypto is what happens when a party game and a spy thriller get together. At first glance, it looks like your typical word game, like code names. You're giving your team word-related clues, and your team is trying to guess the correct sequence of numbers relating to those word clues. But very quickly, the layers of logic and deduction start piling up, because each of the word clues the other team has been giving each other, and you can start putting them together and seeing common themes. So you're solving your own puzzle while deducing the clues of your opponents. And that process is really fun. Because that's what separates this game from codenames. It's the interaction. It's not just about your team doing well with its own thing. It's about stopping the other team from doing well. You're actively passing the clues, watching the patterns emerge, trying to figure out how their minds work. When you get close, it forces the opponent's team to go even more abstract and outlandish with their clues, just to keep you off the scent. It's like this awesome exercise in mind games that codenames can never provide. The result is a deduction game that never feels passive. Every turn matters. There's always something to do. Even when it's not your team's turn, you're decoding, theorizing, analyzing, and most importantly, engaging with everyone at the table. The interactivity is what sets a crypto apart. You're not just playing a game near other people, you're playing with and against them in this awesome dance of deception and deduction. A fantastic party game that is most certainly a real cipher for sore eyes.
Was this elixir brewed with careful science or reckless guesswork? Would you take the risk and drink this curious brew to win? A tough choice to make, and one you'll make often in tonight's sixth game, Alchemists. Tonight, we examine a tale of scholarly ambition, dubious ethics, and experimental outcomes that bubble over. But you're not alone in this endeavor, so don't be afraid to flask a friend. Alchemist is a deduction game with a thick potion of strategy, risk, and scholarly bravery. Players take on the roles of ambitious potion brewers, testing ingredient combinations to uncover the hidden logic behind alchemical reactions. With the help of a companion app, you'll mix and publish theories, gain grants, and compete for scientific prestige in what feels like a very academic and yet oddly chaotic at times race for glory. But what really makes Alchemist special is the fact that it takes deduction at your own tempo. You can play it safe, triple checking your logic, and slowly inching your way towards a bulletproof theory. Or you can just dive headfirst into wild experimentation. Bluff your way through a peer review and hope your incorrect theory doesn't lead to selling snake oil to adventurers. Because the balance between rigor and recklessness, it's really enjoyable, and you'll often find yourself both chuckling and sometimes cringing if your hubris ends up catching up to you. The one big catch, though, is that it is an incredibly difficult game to teach. The rules are dense, the app requires explanation, and newer players might feel lost in the early rounds. But once it clicks, it is a rewarding and utterly unique deductive experience. It's not just about figuring out the answer, it's about how confidently, or in some cases foolishly, you pretend to already know it. Have you ever been lost? Truly lost? Have you ever been afraid of where that sound is coming from in the darkness? Or where your next meal is coming from? Or if you'll be something else's next meal? Welcome to our fifth entry of the night, the Corpse of Discovery. Our perilous explorers set out in search of knowledge, to chart the land, to brave the unknown, to leave their mark on history. But discovery has a price. A crew member vanishes, supplies go missing, strange tracks circle the camp at night. If you're not careful, you'll let your fears lead you off the trail to solving this mystery.
Corpse of Discovery stands out among deduction games for how seamlessly it blends survival, exploration, and teamwork into the genre. It's the only game on this list that makes you feel brilliant together, like your group is actually on an expedition, piecing together mysteries with each new clue. You're not just solving logic puzzles, you're battling storms, managing food, and wondering what strange creature left those ominous tracks in the mud. What makes the game great is how it layers deduction into the crisis system. These aren't just flavored text events. They're clever mini puzzles that force you to consider trade-offs and long-term implications. Do you feed the carnivorous birds to save your teammate? Conserve resources for the journey ahead? Do you set up shelter and save the fires? Or press onwards in hope of discovering your final clue? The game is constantly tempting you to do too much, and punishing you when you do. What's really brilliant is that you don't have to win every challenge. In fact, often the smartest play is to fail selectively, focusing only on what pushes the group closer to the overarching solution. That blend of moment-to-moment tension with big-picture strategy makes Corpse of Discovery something special in the deduction space, an evolving adventure where clever decisions feel as vital as clever deductions. It gamifies the entire deductive experience in a great way that maps out a unique and fun experience. I'm not saying this.
So you gotta say it. Say it.
I'm tentatively calling this one a win.
Have you ever tried to crack a code? Well, tonight you'll test your wits against our analog machine in our number 4 game, Turing Machine. I should warn you though, this is not a game that pretends to be anything more than a puzzle. So while it's a brilliant deduction game, don't count on it to reboot your interest in the genre. Now, don't let the fact that Turing Machine looks like math homework fool you. This is an incredibly entertaining deduction game. It is unapologetically a puzzle, putting you in the seat of a codebreaker trying to determine a secret 3-digit code using a series of logic-based verifiers. The paper punch card system isn't like anything else you've seen in a board game. It gives the game this sort of like tactile analog computer feel that feels both novel and really satisfying. And there is no real attempt here to mask the puzzle with any semblance of theme. And honestly, that's perfectly fine. In a genre that is so desperate to dress up deduction as a haunted house or a spy mission, it's kind of refreshing just to say like, yeah, here's a logic puzzle, deal with it. And it's a good one at that. Every turn feels meaningful as you just get a little closer to the truth, and the game pushes you to make increasingly precise decisions, testing your logical reasoning and in quiet intensity. Now, this one does fall in the multiplayer solitaire end of the spectrum. There is very little interaction here, which usually isn't our favorite, but the deduction here is so tight and focused that honestly, it doesn't really need it. It's a rare game that gets away with making you feel totally alone in your head and yet still completely engaged. Just be warned, if you don't like logic puzzles, this is not going to convert you. But if you do, this is a near perfect expression of the genre. I know it had me turning over a new leaf with deduction games. Picture, if you will, a haunted manor. Whispers of ancient treasure and adventure. And something else, something haunting you. Welcome to our third best deduction game of the night, Spectral. Tonight, we ask you use your logic and deduction to find what is hidden, or will you make the grave mistake of underestimating this one and curse your misfortune?
The premise of Spectral is relatively simple. Exploring a haunted estate, trying to deduce which locations are cursed and which ones are full of treasure. But you're working with incomplete information. So when you peek at one of the tiles, it might tell you that a curse is located 2 faces diagonally. And because you don't have enough time to look at every clue, you're dealing with imperfect information, which lends perfectly to the excitement of the experience. And the game just does an awesome job of never overstaying its welcome. Unlike a lot of other deduction games, you can get a match of Spectral done in under 30 minutes. And yet, despite that short playtime, it still delivers on the opportunity to make a galaxy load of choices in a very limited amount of space. And not just that, but Spectral is also new player friendly. Because Spectral is fairly forgiving, you can mess up, read a clue wrong, or take a gamble that doesn't pay off, but the game lets you pivot. Because you're also competing for area majority, there's this whole second layer of strategy that keeps things dynamic. In fact, watching where your opponents place the explorers becomes a huge part of how you get the information. It's a refreshing twist that makes deduction feel a bit more alive, less stagnant, or individually focused. Spectral is just a brilliant deduction game that truly rewards players with spirit.
Did a crew of cryptozoologists stumble upon another clue? Or was it just another fallen tree in the wilderness? Could a simple yes or no reveal the monster they seek? Welcome to the number 2 game of the night, Crypted. Tonight, 5 minds enter the search for the elusive Crypted, a tricky mythological creature, but only one will piece together the truth. Is this deduction at its finest, or does Crypted simply have a lock on fun? Crypted is one of those rare deduction games that makes you feel really clever. You're tossed into the wilderness trying to find the mythical creature, armed with only a single clue. But the cool thing is that you don't directly share your clue with others at the table. Instead, you just have to answer direct questions from other players with a simple yes or no. So, for example, they might ask if your clue points to the creature being in a water location, and if it doesn't, you simply say no. So you're not just solving your own little logic puzzle, you're using reverse engineering to deduce other people's clues through their answers and their own questions. And I think that's sort of what sets Cryptid apart from so many other deduction board games. The whole friggin' table is active and not, sort of nose down in their own notepads. It rewards players who are observant, logical, and sometimes a little sneaky. And when someone makes that big leap in understanding based on simply, yes or no questions, it almost feels like magic in the best way possible. Well, only when it's yourself making that deductive conclusion. Every turn is meaningful, and you very rarely feel like you're shooting completely in the dark. And when mistakes are made, the game facilitates a sense of ownership in those mistakes because you know it was you that messed up, and not some roll of the dice or flip of the card, which makes the defeat in this game all the harder to stomach. especially since to this date, I'm Yeti to win. Did you answer tonight's puzzle? Did you find the solution hidden within the video? We scattered the clues, some hidden in plain sight, others buried deep behind the words, the music, the visuals, and now, dear viewer, the question remains, did you solve the mystery? The search for Planet X. Could it be any other game than this pure deduction dem? Can you find the mysterious planet? It might be easier said than done.
The Search for Planet X is one of the purest deduction games on this list, like textbook deduction. You're trying to locate a hidden planet somewhere in our solar system by using logic-based clues and scientific reasoning. And while that might sound daunting, the app does a great job of keeping things streamlined. It's not overwhelming or overly digital, it just quietly handles the logic checks and clue delivery, so the players can focus on the real fun, solving the mystery. This is a game about racing to the same conclusion. Everyone's searching through the same galaxy for the same clues, and it's thrilling to watch that moment build when someone finally decides, yeah, I've got it. There's a tension that grows with each theory, each scan, and each deduction you overhear. It rewards methodical thinking and attentiveness, and very few games let you feel quite so clever for arriving at the right answer before everybody else. Of course, that only holds true if you're actually right. If you're wrong, well, Planet X is still out there. And now everyone knows you have no idea what you're doing, and they'll probably secretly laughing at you. And we'll definitely be talking about you when you go home. But that risk, it's part of the charm. It's a game that lets you feel empowered, brilliant even, until it doesn't. And honestly, that emotional swing makes every play memorable and puts me over the moon every time I play it.
Deduction isn't just a mechanic, it's a mindset. And these 8 games prove that a well-constructed puzzle can be just as thrilling as any war, trading in the Mediterranean, and obnoxiously cute anthropomorphic animals doing cute people shit. We hope you enjoyed tonight's investigation. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe to this video. I'm definitely not Jonathan Franks, and this has been Tabletop Turtle Mysteries.